Hello, and welcome to the second in this series of programs about the foundational concepts of economics. In this one, we look at the notion of opportunity cost. As we explained when we looked at scarcity, time is the ultimate scarce resource. It's the one thing that you really simply cannot get any more of, and you can't reuse any of the amount of time that you have. Now, if you live in the world of Harry Potter, of course, this isn't true. In the world of Harry Potter, if you have access to a time turner, you can relive a period of time, or you can do two different things at the same time. So if you've read the Harry Potter novels, you may remember that in one of them, Hermione Granger is given a time turner so that she can go to two different classes at the same time, so as to improve her chances in the Hogwarts exams. Now, of course, we do not live in this world, sadly, perhaps. Instead, we live in a world where, unlike Hermione, you cannot do two things at the same time. If you're doing one thing at one time, you can't do something else. And this is a reflection of the ultimate scarcity of time. And what this means is that you always have to choose between different uses of your time. Now, you may think of this also as being choosing between different uses of your physical energy, your effort, or of resources that you control. But it always ultimately comes down to the fact that you have to decide how to use time because you can't do two things at the same time. The point is that more widely, if you use resources, your own effort, your own energy, your own labor, or the things that you control or have access to do one thing, you typically can't use those resources, that effort, that labor, to do something else. And it's this that gives rise to one of the most important foundational concepts in economics, the concept of opportunity cost. Now, what this leads to is the rather, for many people, grim conclusion that nothing, absolutely nothing in life is free. Everything has a cost. This is captured in a number of basic popular sayings. Perhaps the best known of these is the expression, "there's no such thing as a free lunch." Now, on the surface, this referred originally to the practice that bars used to have in the United States of offering a free lunch provided you bought drink. And the idea was that the lunch was not really free because you were paying more for the drink. But ultimately, it refers to the fact that no matter what you do, you're giving up something else in order to do it. And that something else that you're giving up is the opportunity cost. And that is the real cost of doing something. Because if you choose to do one thing, you've chosen to not do something else. And the value of that next best choice, the best alternative that you have foregone by choosing to do one thing, is the opportunity cost. And that's the real measure of the cost of what it is that you're doing. Benjamin Franklin, another famous American, of course, captured this principle in his book, Poor Richard's Almanac, when he coined the expression, "time is money." And what he said was that if you can earn 10 shillings a day and you then take half the day off and don't do anything, he said, even if you only spend sixpence in that half day, the cost to you is actually 5 shillings, because that's a half day in which you could have earned 5 shillings. So you've given up that 5 shillings, and that is the real cost of your half day of idleness, not the sixpence that you've actually spent. Hence the saying, time is money. Now, what this means in turn is that cost and benefit can be measured or thought of in terms of subjective utility, the benefit that you get from getting the choice that you've done, minus the cost of the thing that you could have done but haven't done. Now, opportunity cost can take several different forms, and economists are careful to distinguish between the different forms of cost. Sometimes the cost is explicit. So if, for example, a firm spends money on buying a building or materials, that's the opportunity cost, is the actual amount of money that they spend on getting the building or the materials. Because in that case, what they're giving up is the alternative things that they could have got with that money, which would presumably have been just slightly less valuable to them, assuming that they're rational in their choices. And so in that case, it's explicit. Sometimes there's the implicit kind of cost, which is where, for example, you spend money on stock, and you could have been, the money is still there in the form of the stock, but what you could do is use that stock for something else, or you could rent it out, you could sell it to somebody else, so you've basically withdrawn it from its current best use. Sometimes there's an evaluative element to opportunity cost, and this is what actually makes it quite tricky for many people to work out exactly what it is. There's a very famous way of illustrating this. Suppose you have a free ticket to watch a particular band or musical performance. You call it Band A. At the same nights that Band A is performing, you have another concert by a Band B. You would normally pay £60 to go and watch Band B. That's what you would be prepared to do. There's a ticket available to go and see Band B for £50. So the question is, if you choose to use your free ticket, which for the sake of argument we assume has no resale value, to go and see Band A, what is the cost to you of going to see Band A? Now you might say, no, there is no cost because the ticket is free. But actually what you're giving up is the chance to see Band B. But if you were going to see Band B, you would have to spend £50 to go and see it to get £60 worth of benefit. So the opportunity cost to you of going to watch Band A is £10 because you've given up the £60 that you would have been prepared to benefit that you would have got from seeing Band B, less the £50 that you would have had to pay for the ticket, which is money that you could have then spent on something else if you had chosen not to see the band. So in that case, the opportunity cost is £10, even though it appears that you're not actually spending any money at all in terms of going to see Band A. Now, this has all kinds of very far-reaching implications. As I've said already, it means that in this world, absolutely nothing is free. Everything comes with a cost. What it also means is certain very counterintuitive conclusions that you might arise at when you think about things like, say, pollution or prosecuting criminals. Let's take, for example, the case of catching and prosecuting criminals. Do you believe or do you think that it's always worth catching every single murderer under all circumstances? If you understand the principle of opportunity cost, you will realize that actually, no, it's not. Because the time and effort that you put into catching the murderer is time and effort and resources that could have been used for something else. After a while, the value of those foregone uses of time and effort, the opportunity cost, will be greater than the value of catching the murderer under anybody's scheme of values. And what that means is that in the case of pollution, for example, the optimum level of pollution for an economist is not and cannot be zero, because that would imply that reducing pollution has no opportunity cost. And as I've just said, everything has an opportunity cost. The time and effort it takes to reduce pollution to a given level will have an opportunity cost. But if you reduce pollution to zero, the opportunity cost will actually be so great that it will amount to the entire value of everything that anybody does. And so although you may want to get the number of murderers caught up to the highest level you possibly can, the amount of pollution down to as low as you can possibly go, you can't catch every murderer or get pollution down to completely zero because of the opportunity cost. And so this is an extremely powerful and very important idea, and it's one that leads to conclusions that economists find obvious, but which many other people find rather strange.